So let's get tactical for a minute. So you're brought in to help an organization build or transform their engineering team. What are the first things you assess? Like, are you looking for warning signs that the company's about to lose their best people? Are there leading indicators of a healthy, high performing team? How do you approach that?
I usually don't get called in to assess healthy, high performing teams. By the
Just the
time
ones that
somebody
are a
calls me
mess.
on the phone, it's a fractional executive of last resort. So
Okay.
if you need my help, you really need help. I have a lot of things where from the time I pick up to the phone to the time the contract has been signed has been 8 hours. Right. It's like, listen, I'm available now. I can jump in. I understand your problem. And it's you take a look at the team dynamic, you take a look at the velocity, and you ask, what's not working here, and you sit down and you just look for the patterns. And I graduated from University of Waterloo in 1996, so I'm celebrating 30 years of doing this kind of work, mostly in startups, right? And so the fun there is that there are not that many new patterns that I see anymore for what the problems are. I usually come into an organization and I've got a playbook amongst a dozen things that I've done in the past. And people are kind of funny because they're like, you seem very calm right now. And I'm like, this is on a scale of 1 to 10, this is about a 0.06 for, stress compared to other stuff I've seen. Right. And people are fascinated by that. But it's just, we'll get through these problems. The thing that you're describing or the thing that we're fixing here, it's probably not even going to hit a month of pain or less than $1 million of damage. And sometimes we've had problems that it's like literally $100,000 an hour of economic impact to the business every hour that it's down, and trying to figure out how to put it back up. Right. That's what real stress looks like.
Okay, so really what I'm hearing is that it doesn't really matter what business you're in. Experience is a power tool. I
It
think
really
about
is.
my own
Yeah.
stuff, your stuff. Yeah. So what do you learn about yourself? Like, what do you value by working in this portfolio career model rather than being all in at one company? How does it change your relationship to both money and meaning?
Boy, my relationship with money has been unusual, right? Startups tell you a story, and there's a certain amount of fiction to the meritocracy of startups. And I think I learned that about 15 years too late. The general startup, if you look at it and the general relationships that people have with their investors, there's always a money trail that leads to an investment path. Either it's a former executive that he was, somebody was on my sales team, helped me do a $10 million deal at Salesforce so I could invest in him. I call it house money is the notion that I use to describe it. And there's a subset of entrepreneurs and people who come in who don't have, a Stanford degree is worth, $10 million Series A. Just going to Stanford is probably worth similar to that. And if you've never been to Stanford or you've never worked at Microsoft and you're just out there as a person with big ideas, people don't know what to price you as an entrepreneur, right? So I went out probably for about 5 years pitching for investment without realizing that I pretty much looked like an entertaining clown to the investment community because there were so many things that I was missing. A lot of people took those pitches because they realized I was a person of phenomenal engineering talent, and they were trying to matchmake me with other CEOs and people to join their businesses. I misinterpreted a lot of those signals, but also I found that the handful of conversations that went someplace, I didn't get the premium value for the equity I was looking for. Like a really sharp CEO would be like, I can give you 5% of the company as we raise money together. I'm like, 5? How about 40? Right. And we had such a significant mismatch for we're both going to be spending the same time in the space. We're going to be working together. I don't know why you think you should have the lion's share of the equity. If that's what they taught you at your MBA program or whatever it is that you learned that at, that's great, but you're not going to attract A-star talent. And then a number of years later, I'll see where that company went and it didn't go very far, or maybe it did. And I'll go, okay, there, but for the grace of God, going. No regrets about it. But at the same time, it's very clear that, my maybe it's inflated sense of self-worth has saved me from a couple of train wrecks, but also may have cost me a few opportunities.
Well, then I think too, when you create more of a win-win scenario for both parties, it usually comes out better anyway, you know.
That's true.